Hi there, my name is Gretchen Peters. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Alliance to Counter Crime Online. Welcome to National Whistleblowers Day panel on tech whistleblowers. I've got two really great co-panelists that I'm speaking to today, two of my heroes in this space. The first speaker is going to be Ifeoma Uzoma, after being muzzled from speaking out about why she left her high-profile job at Pinterest. She co-sponsored a bill that's making its way through the California legislature called Silenced No More, which promises to put lots and lots of potential tech whistleblowers in the position to speak out about all sorts of injustices that are going on in that space. We're going to be hearing from her in a minute. And then Katie Paul, who runs the Tech Transparency Project. Katie has been doing groundbreaking work looking at how algorithms and other tech-produced or tech-developed tools spread extremism both globally and also here in the United States. Ifeoma, why don't you start and tell us your story about how you became a whistleblower?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the panel today, Gretchen. At Pinterest, and I was forced to sign one after raising concerns that I had about discrimination and retaliation that I was experiencing while on the public policy and legal teams there. And after raising those complaints internally, and then also with the state, going through the process that you're told to go through when you're in a situation like this, the result was the company forcing me out of my role, even though I was in the middle of managing a number of projects that were public facing, and then putting me in a position at the beginning of the pandemic last year where if I didn't sign this agreement, I would have no compensation or health insurance right at the beginning of the pandemic. And one of the reasons why I'm taking my policy experience that I had from work I did at Pinterest, at Facebook, at Google, and putting it towards this bill that I'm working on is because I know that even when there are the one-off good actors at companies, what we really need is safeguards for people across the board, because there are people who are in the position that I was in, who are working for individuals in their homes as babysitters, as nannies, as house cleaners, all the way up to the former COO of Pinterest, who also spoke out about her own experience being paid unfairly and being retaliated at the company. And so through this bill that I'm co-sponsoring, my hope is that if it's passed by the Assembly in a few weeks, goes back to the Senate for reconciliation, is passed there, and then goes to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk and is signed, that then 40 million people across the state, both in the work context and in housing, because a lot of people don't understand that a lot of rental leases also have non-disclosure and non-disparagement clauses in them, will be protected and will be able to speak their truth, because there's absolutely no reason why you should work somewhere for 6 months or 6 years and they can force you to be silent for the rest of your life about unlawful activity like discrimination, harassment, and abuse.
What a story. And it's yeah, it really is a violation of principles of free speech, which is one of the fundamental rights that we have in this country. And there have been so many incredible voices that have come out just this year in the tech space. I'm thinking of Timnit Gebru at Google. I'm thinking of Sophie Zhang at Facebook. She turned down, she refused to sign an NDA when she left and turned down a $60,000 payment, hush money that they effectively offered her, so she could continue to speak out about what she experienced there. So we've really seen a lot of very brave people, many of them women, coming forward to break the wall of silence that the tech industry, and as you rightly point out, many industries impose on people. So thank you for doing this. Had you ever thought about, um, I don't know, helping to sponsor a law before?
No, I hadn't, because my entire experience working with policymakers and working on legislation had been working on behalf of the companies that I was at. So my experience was very much on the other side of this. And that experience has actually been really helpful in combating what the Chamber of Commerce has been saying in its opposition to the bill, the cover that the chamber has provided for the tech companies who are vocal on so many things, but on this are refusing to take a position. And so it's been actually really useful having that experience and then now working on the bill from this side. I think that the work that organizations like yours do, that a number of folks across the country are doing to help whistleblowers is important. But again, we do need legislative change at the state level and especially at the federal level to protect people, because no one should be in a position where, like Sophie, they have to decide to turn down compensation, or in my
Yeah.
position where the choice would have been turning down health insurance in the middle of a pandemic. That's just not right, and it's not a position anyone should be in.
That was actually what I wanted to circle back to next in terms of this discussion, because it's one of the most important aspects of the whistleblower laws that do exist is the protections, first of all, the anonymity protections, but second of all, the financial incentives of the laws, because many people who blow the whistle suffer incredible financial hardship as a result of coming forward and can become sort of unemployable in their space. There's a lot of repercussions for this and for speaking out. And so it's really important, as you say, that the protections that you're pushing through get implemented both at the state level in California, and hopefully California can be the vanguard for similar legislation in other states and at the federal level. So thank you for what you're doing. Katie, you have been a pioneer in figuring out how to, or in tracking and exposing the spread of extremism on social media. Can you talk to us about your work?
Thanks, Gretchen. So at the Tech Transparency Project, we've been looking a lot, not just at extremism, but at how Facebook's algorithmic tools are amplifying extremism and really driving radicalization. And this may extend beyond some of the 230 protections that the platform has enjoyed over the past decade that's really shielded it from any sort of repercussions for amplifying this kind of content. The first issue is how Facebook's algorithms really amplify extremism. We first looked at this with white supremacist groups and searched for designated white supremacist groups on the platform using a clean browser, and then found that many of the groups that we identified, Facebook would recommend other white supremacist content through the platform and through its algorithmic recommendation tools. This has been an issue for a while, but even after movements like the Boogaloo movement have been implicated in murders and organizing violent extremism, Facebook made very public statements about the fact that it would stop algorithmically recommending Boogaloo content. Yet here you see in this video that was taken in January of this year, nearly a year after Facebook promised to stop amplifying content, we're seeing Boogaloo content still getting amplified on the platform. And even after Governor Gretchen Whitmer was threatened, after the FBI arrested multiple militia groups in Michigan who had planned to kidnap her, the same Michigan militia groups that were involved in that plot were not only still active on Facebook, but Facebook would recommend another Michigan militia after you went to one on their platform and liked it. So really, its algorithm tools are amplifying this. And one of the most important things to keep in mind with the Michigan case is that the FBI informant in that case actually testified just a couple months ago that he only joined the militia group because Facebook recommended it to him. He didn't go seeking out a militia. He was not interested in militia, but the platform's algorithms recommended this content to him because he liked Second Amendment content. And ultimately, as a result of this, he stumbled upon a plot to kidnap the governor. But these are just one aspect of Facebook's algorithms. And of course, YouTube has algorithms and other platforms like Twitter algorithmically recommend content all the time. And so far, that's been protected under 230. But what's unique to Facebook that we're not seeing with the other platforms is Facebook actually creating extremist content itself. This was first raised in a whistleblower suit filed by the National Whistleblower Center back in 2019 that found that Facebook was actually creating auto-generating pages for terrorist groups and white supremacist groups. Terrorist groups, you know, of course, this is something we know terrorists are on Facebook, but the harm here is that thousands of people would then go and like these pages. And you could click on the page likes and essentially have a Rolodex of potential supporters that is a gift to any extremist recruiter. You now have direct links to profiles of people who physically like your platform, even if you didn't create this page. This is a flaw in Facebook's methodology of how it creates a business for something. Essentially, if I were to write down that I'm a member of Al-Shabaab and there's not a designated official page for Al-Shabaab, Facebook creates it. And that's what we saw here. And it was even auto-generating and pulling in imagery like the ISIS logo you see here. We know Al-Shabaab had declared allegiance to ISIS at this time, pulling in descriptions of these groups and even recommending other pages. This was raised before Congress. So in 2019, after the Whistleblower Center report on Facebook auto-generating extremist pages, the issue was actually raised to Monica Bickert, one of Facebook's executives, on the House floor during a hearing. The content was still active as of that hearing. And you would think that after Facebook was called out by Congress on the House floor, that it would do something to address this issue, but it didn't.
Lastly, how, if there were terrorist content shown to be on your platforms by a public entity, would you take it down? So, Ms. Bicker, why, when the Whistleblower Association reveals that Facebook is establishing, through its AI platform, Al-Qaeda community groups, such as this one, a local business, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, with 217 followers. I have it right here on my phone, by the Whistleblower Association. It is considered the most active of Al-Qaeda's branches or franchises that emerged due to weakening central leadership. It is a militant Islamist organization primarily active in Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Why is this still up? We have every right now to feel as if you are not taking this seriously. And by we, I do not mean Congress, I mean the American people. Thank you.
And another whistleblower report just months later showed that Facebook was still auto-generating pages, including ones for the Islamic State, like you see here. The platform had done nothing to address this problem. Fast forward, nearly a year later, and the Tech Transparency Project's investigation into white supremacy found that Facebook was still auto-generating pages for white supremacist groups and pulling in their logos, like this one for the Aryan Circle, which has a logo with the Nazi symbol in it. Facebook, again, still has not addressed this problem. And 2021, a March report by TTP found that many of the militia pages that we had identified, and this is now months after Facebook banned militant movements, Facebook was also auto-generating pages for militia groups. And as you can see by the page creation date here, it's been doing so for about a decade. These pages still exist on the platform. It's not removing them. And this is really part of a bigger problem, which is the platform creating content for extremists and not just hosting it. And it raises a lot of questions as to whether or not Facebook can enjoy those 230 immunities that some of its fellow platforms enjoy with this kind of technology.
Katie, that's a really interesting, that case reminds me of the recent ruling with regards to Snapchat in the Ninth Circuit, which found that Snapchat does need to at least face trial because of an algorithmic tool that encouraged users to record their speed. And this is one of the first times the courts have tried to parse out the issue of algorithmic creation of content and the impacts that algorithms have on spreading and distributing content, but also influencing the behavior of the users on the platform. So it's probably a good time to for the National Whistleblower Center to clang the bell about that AutoGen case. Again, we're seeing a lot of new interpretations of how tech should be tech algorithms should be regulated. So, and I think another issue that case raises and your work raises is the extent to which investors in companies like Facebook know that the role that the platform is playing in spreading harm. Are you aware, is that Tech Transparency Project had any conversations with the SEC or with Congress or with the National Whistleblower Center about these issues?
TTP has not engaged with the SEC, but certainly we've briefed many members of Congress on the algorithmic amplification of these crimes and the way Facebook is profiting off of this. We did an exclusive report with BuzzFeed right after the January 6th attack on the Capitol, where there was content from militia groups talking about the insurrection and taking over the government that was running right alongside advertisements for body armor and military accessories. The platform was really profiting off of this militia interest, and looking at the ad interest for the profile we used for this research, Facebook had actually tagged it as interested in militia. That was one of the advertising categories that still existed many months after militia had allegedly been banned on the platform. So not only is Facebook failing at enforcing its policies, it's profiting off of its failure to do so. And in the same token, amplifying and even creating extremist content that can embolden people beyond content they would go searching for on their own.
And have you had any outreach with Facebook? Can you talk about what Facebook says when you when you publish on this content?
Facebook has been very careful when responding to media about any of our reports not to mention the auto generation issue. And there do appear to have been some tweaks to the way that auto-generated pages, what you can click on a page, you can still like it, but may not be able to see the likes. This has come as they've revamped their entire interface to really focus on groups and keep groups as the promotional aspect. But it's really notable that when you look at the auto generation issue, the fact that its spokespeople are avoiding that in conversation means that they very well may be aware that this is a weak spot when it comes to their 230 protections, because usually the platform is pretty strong worded in the way it goes after things that they know that they have a shield for. And this issue has yet to be tested in court. But Facebook is continuing to auto-generate this kind of content. It hasn't stopped doing so. And that's something that the platform really needs to answer for, particularly as we move forward, with further investigations into January 6th, into the role of the platform in that. Facebook was cited more than any other platform in terms of the arrestees for January 6th. Mm-hmm. And this is something that Congress will likely be digging into with a panel that's going to investigate that incident.
Fascinating. And so I am also a whistleblower and leading a team of about 10 whistleblowers who have also filed a complaint to the SEC against Facebook. I'm one of the few people in the group that is out public. We have people who formerly worked with Facebook in our team or worked alongside Facebook, and we're privy to the company's decisions around restricting and responding to illicit content, everything from illegal and counterfeit drug sales to human trafficking, child sex abuse content. And very similar to what Katie has been finding in the realm of extremism content, what researchers and whistleblowers in our case have found is that once you start searching on a particular issue, say opioids or certain content related to illegal wildlife or wildlife abuse, animal abuse, the content starts coming to you. In essence, the platform's algorithms are built and designed to keep people engaged as much as possible. And there are not only no speed bumps to stop those algorithms from spreading and amplifying content when that content happens to be harmful or abusive or illegal. In fact, that content seems to spread as fast as anything on the platform. And it's a very, very dangerous situation, especially when you're dealing with one of our whistleblowers has provided very compelling evidence about the way that drug dealers and counterfeit drug sellers sort of patrol and have infested groups on Facebook that are dedicated to people battling dependency issues. We've got a whistleblower who has done a lot of work on the building machine learning tools that are able to flag drug dealers and other illicit sellers, whether they're selling illegal wildlife or even fraudulent medicines that are supposed to cure COVID. This stuff spreads like wildfire, and it spreads because the algorithms spread it. And the complaint notes that the firm has put in virtually no internal controls to slow this content down. And in fact, some of the pages with very high rates of engagement related to organized crime have existed for years. Some of the pages and groups have thousands and thousands, in some cases even hundreds of thousands of members or likes. And the more engagement they have, the less likely it seems for them to get taken down. So, I'm really proud to be leading this team of people who have, in some cases, really put their lives on the line to gather this information, and who are out there either online or a combination of online and in person, tracking down some of these crime networks that are growing and profiting hugely as a result of the many features that Facebook offers that are helpful to them. The anonymity, the capacity to share and distribute videos and photos, the capacity to communicate in encrypted chat platforms, and even the capacity to send and receive payment. Facebook has not warned its investor or has not implemented the internal controls to stop this from happening. And moreover, they haven't warned their investors that they have this problem. And those are both major violations of the Dodd-Frank Act. And we are very confident that the SEC is going to see it our way and fine the company a lot of money for having this problem, and hopefully hold some of the senior executives accountable. I don't know if either of you have any more questions or issues you want to bring up.
Well, I think when it comes to the SEC in particular, something that we've seen a lot with Facebook's efforts with the FTC, and Tech Transparency Project has even done research looking at how big tech is really influencing people at the FTC through its donations to universities, where it will then ensure that those people are getting positions at that organization. And so the tech, I think, feels that when it comes to antitrust issues, that they've had a lot of leverage, but we have yet to see really concrete, strong action from the SEC. And ultimately, it's investors who are going to be harmed by this content. And those are the ones that we need to see standing up. I mean, the Stop Hate for Profit campaign, when it came to advertising, was important, but it's the investors who are really the ones that are going to be harmed by this. by this action on the part of the company. And Facebook really needs to take a responsibility to its investors, because it certainly is not interested in taking those responsibilities, as a result of what Congress has said, what the public has said, the actual real world harms that are caused by the platform. And so maybe it will listen to its investors, but thus far, there's no agency or government body that the platform has been willing to bend to.
Well, we continue to file new information as it comes into us. We're about to file another chapter of our complaint, hopefully within the next month. I'm working hard with attorneys at the National Whistleblower Center to get that ready. We've got new members, new whistleblowers, former Facebook employees joining our group in this chapter. And I'm really hoping that IFOMA's law gets across, silence no more, gets across the finish line, and more people who used to work there or who used to work alongside Facebook, perhaps as a moderator, perhaps as in some sort of, in some other capacity, come forward too and help us stop this, because the amount of harm that's happening as a result of this illicit activity going on these platforms is truly astonishing. And on that, I will say thank you to both of the panelists, and thank you to the National Whistleblowers Center for hosting this wonderful day-long event. And I hope you enjoyed what we've had to say.